I'm going to share my screen with our presentation. You guys see that? Yep. All right. And I'm going to start the Facebook Live. Just give me a second here. Give me 1 second. Oh, I can't get to that. Hang on 1 second. There we go. All right, it looks like we're ready. Go ahead, Caitlin.
All right, thank you for joining us today for another Living Well Wednesday. We really love doing these every week and being able to share information with self-advocates and providers and the larger community in order to, keep everybody informed and safe and healthy while we are learning about COVID-19 and reopening and all of those things. So we're really grateful that you're here today to hear from the people who have come to share their expertise with us. We have with us today Alice Page and Doreen Goetsch from Adult Protective Services. And we have Leslie Stewart and Anna Anderson from the Disability Rights Wisconsin Ombudsman Program. And we also have Pam Malin, who is with Disability Rights Wisconsin as a Victims of Crime Act advocate. So we're really grateful to have everybody here today to share what they're doing to help support safety for people with disabilities in Wisconsin. I want to touch briefly on what the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities and the Living Well Project has been doing through COVID. We've been putting together quite a few toolkits and resources for people to use to stay safe during this difficult time. One of those toolkits is the Stay Safe Plan toolkit. You can find that on our website on the Living Well page. There's a tab that says Stay Safe, and this toolkit is available there. It has a lot of really good resources for you. It makes sure you know what your rights are, how to keep yourself safe. It has information on how to report abuse and neglect and the resources that are available as far as who you should be reporting to. It also provides a plain language action plan to help people understand how to report and who you might be talking to about these issues. The toolkit also includes a call log, so you can keep track of people you've called, that who you're sharing information with. And specifically, that toolkit also has a list of county numbers that will connect you with your county's APS if you are interested in reporting the abuse or neglect incident to your county APS. So you can, like I said, you can visit our website. We also have a link here in the PowerPoint presentation that will take you right to the toolkit. I'll just also mention that the website has a My Safe Home plan that goes through what you need to have in your house in order for your home to be a safe place for you to be, not just during COVID, but at all times, and what you should be reporting to certain individuals, whether that is people that you trust or your care manager or IRS consultant, or if it rises to the level of needing to involve someone like APS or Disability Rights Wisconsin. It goes through what you would need in your home to stay safe. So I encourage everybody to go to the Living Well page on the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities website. There's a lot of resources there. There's also all of our previous training videos. They are linked underneath the section of the toolkit or resources that are that they apply to. And so if you haven't participated in Living Well Wednesdays before, those are a great place to see all the different conversations that we've been having through the spring. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Alice and Doreen, who are going to talk about adult protective services and their role in supporting your safety.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Doreen and I work in adult protective services in the Department of Health Services, and we are responsible for the oversight of 72 counties and 11 tribes, and we generally spend a lot of time providing technical assistance and consultation to counties and tribes. I'm going to talk just briefly about adults at risk, because that is a population that most of you will be concerned with. Adult Protective Services deals with elder adults at risk and adults at risk. And the adult at risk definition is found in Chapter 55 of the statutes. The citation is here. And it basically has a number of elements that you have to meet. So it has to be any adult and age 18 to 59 who has a physical or mental condition that it substantially impairs his or her ability to care for his or her needs, and who has experienced or is currently experiencing or is at risk of experiencing abuse, neglect, self-neglect, or financial exploitation. And the difference between the elder adults at risk and the adults at risk is that the elder adults at risk, it's simply about age. When you have adults at risk, it's age plus this physical or mental condition. So that's the thing you need to keep in mind in terms of adults at risk. And Doreen or APS, what they generally investigate are complaints of abuse, whether it's physical, sexual, emotional, unreasonable confinement or restraint, treatment without consent. They also investigate neglect, self-neglect, or financial exploitation. So those are the things that APS is responsible for. So now Doreen's going to talk a little bit about some of the data we have about this population.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if anybody can hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks for having me and Alice on this live webcast today. One of the many duties that we have at our department is keeping track of reports that come in to our county-based system. All reports that are received in Wisconsin are investigated by local counties as prescribed by our Wisconsin statutes. Last year, actually in 2018, we had a total of 2,561 reports of abuse and neglect for adults at risk in Wisconsin. We know that both adults at risk and elder adults at risk reports are totally underreported, not only in Wisconsin, but as a nation. So for Wisconsin to receive only 2,561 reports can cause us to, can cause pause, and we have to ask ourselves, why aren't more of these incidents being reported? Of these reported incidences, by far the largest category that we receive is the self-neglect category. And for 2018, 1,074 of those reports involved self-neglect. The second largest category we received was neglect by others. And that could be a caregiver, that could be a parent, that could be a roommate, that could be anybody. But those reports total 322. The next largest category involved financial exploitation, which was about 283 reports. We know as a nation that financial exploitation cases have been on the rise in the last 5 to 7 years, and for various reasons, but and we're also quite surprised that that number isn't larger. The fourth largest category was physical abuse, and that again can be perpetrated by anyone. That could be a care provider, it could be a parent, it could be a service provider, and those reports totaled 164. So that is our four largest categories, and we're waiting to get our 2019 data in, which should be released any day now. All we can say at our department is we encourage people to report elder abuse. We have a new elder abuse hotline in Wisconsin, and that elder abuse hotline will also take reports of adults at risk. They won't ignore anybody in Wisconsin who's being abused. So it's good to know about that elder abuse hotline, and the person who answers that line will refer that case on to the county whose job it will be to investigate and get more information about those reports. And that's about all I have for today. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just gonna end our presentation with just a couple of pointers. Just to follow up on the elder abuse hotline, this is a relatively new system that is being funded by a Department of Justice grant. They've partnered with GWAR, and so the there's a website up here that's extremely complicated. I think the best thing to do is just to go to the gwar.org website and Google elder abuse hotline, and you'll get everything you need to know, including the number and the hours of operation and that sort of thing. But we encourage you to use that, particularly if you're in a critical situation and perhaps you don't think it's important enough or imminent enough to call law enforcement, but you really don't want to have to look up the county number, because that can be a trial in and of itself to find that information. So we encourage you to use the elder abuse hotline. I just want to put the adults at risk data in a little bit of perspective. In 2018, we received a total of about a little over 10,000 cases, and based on that figure, the adults at risk reports constitute about 25% of all those reports. So most of the reports we get are for the elders, but we do get a fair number for the adults at risk. So we've talked about the fact that the investigations are conducted by the county in which the adult at risk resides. And as much as you hear a lot about scams by people, strangers, that the victim doesn't know, most abuse is done by someone that the victim knows. It's someone actually that is in a position of trust relative to their victim. And abuse is intentional harm that involves the exercise of power and control. So those are sort of the key things to remember about abuse. And when I say abuse, I'm talking about abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. APS always, in fact, the statute mandates the preference for voluntary services over involuntary services. However, there are times when people will not agree to accept services that they really need, and they're putting either themselves or somebody else in imminent danger. And that's the time when the APS unit may instigate something like protective placement, a guardianship, or even protective services. But those are involuntary services, and we always like it when the adult is willing to accept services on their own. Want to make a quick distinction between capacity and competency. People mix those terms up all the time. Capacity refers to really someone's ability to take in, to understand, and communicate information. That's really what we refer to as capacity. Decision-making capacity is what we often talk about. It's not something that is required for a court to determine. So you may hear people talk about, well, we don't think Mrs. Jones has got decision-making capacity, but that's really just the judgment of somebody other than a court. When you talk about competency, that is actually a term that refers only to a determination that has been made by a court relative to the request for the establishment of a guardianship. And it's a rather complicated process, but there has to be certain criteria that must be met in order for a court to find that somebody is incompetent. And if anyone needs to know that information or doesn't know it, we certainly can give you that information, and we can also refer you. There is a guardianship support center also housed at GWAR that you can call if you have questions about guardianships or powers of attorney and that sort of thing. But make sure that you really understand the difference between capacity and competency, and don't use those. They're not interchangeable words. And then finally, as Doreen has said, report. You don't have to be the expert. You don't have to know whether what you're seeing actually meets the statutory criteria for the type of abuse that you're suspecting. But people get a gut feeling about abuse. And so what we always say is trust your instincts. You don't have to be right. There's no, as long as your report is made in good faith, there's no problem. So if your gut's telling you something's wrong, something doesn't add up, you're just not sure, we encourage you to report to County APS or call the Elder Abuse Hotline. So Doreen, do you have anything else you want to add?
I'd just like to add that anyone can report suspected abuse or neglect, and you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose to do so. So if you're worried about any repercussions for reporting, you can remain totally anonymous. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. We really appreciate you providing that information. I think what you said is so important about reporting. We will post when we post the video, we'll post the just overall GWAR site, because I think there are a lot of good resources there. So we are going to move on to the next part of our presentation. We will have the folks from Disability Rights, but we just wanted to talk a little bit about a rights document that we created as part of Living Well. So we created a rights document that is in simple language that really talks about some of your rights during COVID. And I think these are some of the things, if you were to reach out to Disability Rights, if you thought, this just doesn't seem right, that might be a place that you would seek support. And so these rights were mostly about living situations, but we also did do an employment rights. So I just linked that here, but again, you can go to the Living Well page at any point. We did a presentation for this, so that will also be on that website. And so I'm going to turn it over to Leslie and Anna to give us some information about the Family Care and IRS Ombudsman Program.
Thanks, Sally. Hi, I'm Leslie Stewart. I am the Program Manager for the Disability Rights Wisconsin Family Care and IRS Ombudsman Program. And I just wanted to thank Sally and Caitlin and the whole Living Well team for having us today. It's great to be able to share our information with you. First of all, it's a big long title, Disability Rights Wisconsin Family Care and IRS Ombudsman Program. A lot of words. We all get hung up on that word ombudsman, quite honestly. It's a strange word. It's a technical word. So I just wanted to take this moment and explain that ombudsman is really an advocate. So you don't have to worry about how to pronounce it or what it means. Just know that we're advocates for people on Family Care and IRS, or people who want to be on those programs. And you're welcome to call us anytime with questions about those programs. Again, we have 11 ombudsmen to help you out. So they're across Wisconsin. We have offices in Madison, Milwaukee, Rice Lake, and Menasha. We also have 2 attorneys, 2 intake specialists, and me as the program manager to support those ombudsmen to help you with your issues. From home, I'm in Appleton. We hope to be getting back to our offices this summer, but it's all working out. Even from home, we're still able to help you and get in touch with people. So don't hesitate to call us. When Family Care and IRIS started about 11, 12 years ago, the state legislature decided that there should be an advocacy program, an ombudsman program to support people in Family Care and IRIS. And so Disability Rights Wisconsin provides that service. Disability Rights Wisconsin does a lot of things. Pam will talk later about another part of our another program that we have, but just so you know, we do provide this specific advocacy service. But if you call us and you have an issue that is broader than your Family Care and IRIS topics, we will do our best to get you other resources as well, either within disability rights or somewhere else in Wisconsin. We provide individual casework. So we work with individuals and their families to address their issues. We don't do public policy. Disability Rights Wisconsin does look at public policy for people with disabilities, but we focus on that individual advocacy. And I just want to emphasize, we are your free resource and advocate to help you with issues with these programs. Anna's going to take over now and go into some of the other bullet points that we have to explain what we can offer you.
All right. Hi, I'm Anna Anderson, and I'm a Family Care and IRIS Ombudsman in our Madison office. I just want to kind of go over first who should call us. So we serve people between the ages of 18 and 59 that are enrolled with Family Care Partnership or IRIS, or are trying to get enrolled through the ADRC. So, or, you know, we even serve people that maybe haven't started the enrollment process with the ADRC, but are having a hard time for a variety of reasons getting that kind of, getting the ADRC to start moving with getting them enrolled. So when should someone call us? So the service we provide really is for people that have questions about the care or services they're receiving from their managed care organization or from IRIS, or concerns with enrollment, which we just talked about. So either being determined ineligible based on their functional eligibility or their financial eligibility. Somebody should give us a call when they have a problem with their care plan. So if there was a reduction in services or a termination of services, or if a service is requested by a client and is denied by IRIS or Family Care, that is a reason to give us a call. I want to make it clear though, that even if you don't have one of those things happening for you, we are still a resource for things like, you know, hey, my care team told me this, is that correct? Can they say that to me? Or does that make sense? We do a lot of question answering, a lot of information and referrals, a lot of, you know, sometimes we see issues with communication breakdown between care teams and clients. So we help facilitate, you know, coming up with a way to communicate better between the two people. I just really think we try to be, let's say that, we try to be like a jack of all trades when it comes to clients in the Family Care and IRIS program, and making sure services are, you know, are working for our clients. We also do a lot of work around relocation. So if somebody's in a nursing home and they're either being discharged or want to leave or what have you, we work with care teams all the time or IRIS consultants on looking for or developing a plan for somebody moving into their own, either their own place or some sort of substitute care that meets their needs. And then what you should expect when you call us. What happens is, just to give you a brief overview, when somebody calls our office and says, I'm having a hard time with IRIS or Family Care, or I have a question about IRIS or Family Care, or I think I have a question about an ADRC, whatever it is, they get directed to our Family Care and IRIS Ombudsman intake department. So we do have 2 intake specialists that what they do is they basically gather, you know, the demographic information, but also get a good handle on what the issue is. And then that intake is assigned to one of the 11 ombudsmen throughout the state by one of our program attorneys. So let's say I got a call I got an intake and the client has an issue that their supportive home care hours have been reduced. This is an example. What does it look like when somebody says, this is what happened? Typically, what I would do there is I would make sure that I obviously got releases of information, but requested documents to see from the MCO or IRS, why did this happen? What went on, what got changed, that kind of thing. And then we look at, was this really a good decision by the managed care organization, because the client's saying it isn't. So we're client advocates. So we're going to try to explain to the provider why this was a decision that doesn't meet the needs of our client. So with that said, we try to negotiate with any managed care organization or IRS program to try to rectify things or, mediate things or advocate for our clients before any sort of administrative law hearing happens or there's any sort of escalation in the process. So if we cannot negotiate or if we're unsuccessful in that endeavor, we do help clients through the state fair hearing process where an administrative law judge decides the outcome of an argument. So, and the way we do that is we provide technical assistance so clients can represent themselves, because it's a very friendly, friendly system on how to go through the state fair hearing process. And sometimes we represent clients directly. So that's kind of, I guess that's what I have for you today. You can see on our slide, that's our contact information. The phone number, we have 4 offices, but the phone number actually goes directly to the office of where, it's weird, to the office of the zip code. So of whatever you're calling, zip code, area code, area code of the number that you're calling from. So if, like, you're a 608, it'll come to our Madison office, but we route people all over the place. So anyway, and then if phone is not an option for you or not something you're comfortable with, please give us an email. We address those every single day. So just let us know via email what you need assistance with and we'll help you out.
Anna, I'm just going to say there was a question about the phone number and somebody was referencing another phone number, but that was the BOLTEC number, so the Board on Aging. So there is an ombudsman for over 60. So just so people know, if you're Googling ombudsman, you want to be sure you're looking for under 60 or over 60, depending on your situation.
Thank you, Sally. I was just going to say that. Thank you for, yes. We serve people 1859, Board on Aging and Long-Term Care serves people 60 and over, but both programs, both Family Care and IRS, it's just that age group that the state, again, made that division for us. So thanks.
And then, and people should know that there is an intake process. So that's when you call that number, that's what you get to first. So thank you so much. Very helpful information. I think that the great thing about your program is it really doesn't matter what people call. I mean, as long as they're calling about something for long-term care, and sometimes even not. That you guys answer lots of questions, and you're always, you basically have to take every call. The state requires you to take all those calls, and you do great work giving information to people. I am going to turn it over to Pam Malin. She's the works with the Victim Advocacy Program at Disability Rights. So just another resource for everyone. Take it away, Pam.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Pam Malin, as Sally said, and I work at Disability Rights Wisconsin in the Victim Advocacy Program. I first of all want to thank the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities and the Living Well Project for putting this together. This is information I think a lot of people need, but don't always know where to find it. So I think this is a really good resource. And as well as it's showing live, it'll be recorded so that later somebody can access it. So I think that's a great thing. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Victim Advocacy Program. We provide support to any person with a disability who has experienced a crime. Those crimes don't have to be something you want to report to police, although you can. They can be something that happened right now, or they can be something that happened last week or 2 years ago, or even when you were younger, if you need to talk to somebody about that and it's affecting your life today in what you're going through or something that's happening in your life. When we say any person with a disability, this program is different than some of the other programs that have been talking prior. We will accept children and people under the age of 18 as well, or we will also work with the families of children with disabilities, or if the parent has a disability and has experienced crime. So we can be somewhat flexible with who we work with and how we work with them. And then the disability doesn't have to be something that you have a piece of paper proving your disability. If you identify as having a disability, or say you have a disability and have experienced crime, we definitely will talk with you about what your issue is and then decide if we're the best resource, or if maybe we need to refer to a different program or person. Some of the people that talk today, or there might be other people in your community that we know of that we can connect you to. One of the reasons why the Victim Advocacy Program is in existence is because people with disabilities experience crime at a much higher rate than people without disabilities. And oftentimes when they walk into a agency that works specifically with crime victims, but not with people with disabilities, they don't always receive either the access or the support that they need as much as they should. Sometimes it's difficult for them to get what they need. So we want to be available to help them get the resources that they need and the help that they need. We want everybody to know that there's many places you can report if you've been a victim of crime. First of all, talk to somebody that you trust and somebody that you know that can help you, either paid or unpaid, a friend, a parent, a spouse, or a care manager, a staff, somebody who can help you to make sure you're safe. If that doesn't feel comfortable, you can then also reach out to a therapist or somebody at a local sexual assault, domestic violence agency, if that's what you're experiencing. You can call a crisis line, you can reach out to Adult Protective Services or the police. But one of the things that's really important for all victims of crime to know is that you have the right to have an advocate alongside you as you tell people. And sometimes that makes it just a little easier to talk about what happened to you and to understand the process that you're going through, because it's not always an easy process to report either to the people that you love or report to the police or wherever it is that you're going to report. So you have the right to have an advocate present when you're telling somebody. You also have the right to have an advocate just to help you understand the process. All of our services are free and confidential, so you will not be paying any out-of-pocket money. We have advocates across the whole state. It's not just in Madison and Milwaukee, which I think is really helpful for people to know, because sometimes people look at DRW and say, oh, you have an office in Madison or you have an office in Milwaukee, but we are around the whole state for the Victim Advocacy Program providing services. We have advocates that live across the state. And one of the really unique things about the program that we wanted to make sure we did when we wrote for funding that we got from Department of Justice, Office of Crime Victim Services, is that we wanted to make sure it was a co-advocacy model. And what we mean by that is that we can work with the local service providers, the local sexual assault or domestic violence service providers who know some of the local resources, but we know more of the disability information or access or resources, and we can then connect with them and provide a much more comprehensive, full support for the individual who's seeking support from being a victim of crime. So I wanted to list a few of the things that we do. One of the things that we do is we make sure that people have access to crime victim rights information and crime victim compensation, and that happens when somebody reports a crime, being a victim of a crime. But we also want you to know that there's things that we can do if you don't report it. So we can work with you on personal advocacy, which means helping you figure out what you want to say, how you want to say it, and who you want to tell, or advocating for you to feel safe in your own home, things of that nature. Victim accompaniment is what I talked about earlier. I just use different words because those words are sometimes a little confusing. It means that you have the right to have an advocate with you when you're going to tell somebody, especially law enforcement or in court or things of that nature, which can be really confusing and intimidating sometimes. We want to make sure, as Leslie and Anna said as well, that when you call DRW at the 800 number, that if you don't fit with us or if what you're asking for doesn't get funded under our program, that we either refer you to another DRW program or other agencies or programs that are around your area so that you still get connected to somebody, because support is really important. One of the things that we do a lot of is providing criminal justice support. It's scary and intimidating, even when you're the victim, to talk to law enforcement. And we want to make sure that you understand what's going on. We want to make sure that you have a voice and get to say how you're feeling. And we are there to support that, not to support the law enforcement officers, not to support the prosecutors or the criminal justice system. We are on your side, and we have the ability to talk to you and not have to share everything that you tell us without your permission. We can also advocate in civil proceedings if a restraining order is needed because somebody is bothering you or somebody is harassing you. We can talk to you about that and even help you get prepared for court, and sometimes even be with you at court. Again, victims' rights and victims' compensation. I talked a little bit about that earlier. We also do school advocacy, because oftentimes people with disabilities who are in school experience bullying or other harassment, and that can be considered a victim of crime. So we can help with that. And we have some great advocates who really know a lot about school issues and how to advocate for what your rights are. We can advocate on housing rights. If you've been a victim of crime and now you find yourself being told that you have to leave your home or homeless, we can talk about some of that. Employment, if you're harassed at work. And then one of the things we feel that oftentimes other programs don't always think about is having full access to services. So we can help advocate for those systems, making sure that they're accessible to you. So if you find yourself or know somebody who's been a victim of crime and has a disability and wants more information or to find out what we can do for you, the 800 number is on the screen. And we just want to make sure that you get access to information about what abuse is. So one of the things we're going to do to follow up with this, and Sally and the others, Caitlin, might tell you more when I get done with this, but I wanted to make sure I addressed, is that Disability Rights Wisconsin, along with the National Disability Rights Network, put together a couple videos about abuse. And one of them is about caregiver abuse. And oftentimes we don't talk about abuse when it comes to caregivers the same way that we talk about abuse with family members or other people in our home. So next week at the Living Well Wednesday, we want to spend a little time watching the video that we put together for the National Disability Rights Network. And then we want to talk about what people are thinking about that, how they're feeling during this time of being isolated and maybe fearful of talking about some abuses that they might be experiencing. The people from APS talked about power and control, and a lot of times with caregivers, that's what it looks like, is that a caregiver starts to control things that you're doing. So we want to take some time to talk about that, watch the video, and then give you access to resources again. So that's what I've got. Thanks, Sally.
That's great, Pam. Yeah, I was gonna promo that a little, and I think that that's what's so important about all these resources is these resources were there before COVID, but we know that particularly now people are much more isolated, not able to connect with maybe the people they had in the past, aren't seeing their doctors. Lots of places where maybe people who were experiencing some type of abuse and neglect or some types of rights violation maybe would have been interacting with those people before coming into their home, caregivers or care managers or IRS consultants. So we just think it's really important that people are reaching out to these different resources if they just feel like things are not right. You know, I don't think any of the people who presented today would, they would want you to call and not worry about whether it's the right place or the right time, but just making that call is so important. So we really appreciate you all joining us today for Living Well Wednesday. And as Pam said, we're putting together the next version of it, which will be a little bit more of a watch party, but we'll have the 2 videos and some conversation. I don't see any questions on the chat or in the Facebook. Somebody did.
I want to just remind everybody that the recording for this video is going to get posted either tomorrow or the next day, depending on how quickly it processes. And we will post the slides along with it this time because I think there's a lot of good contact information on these slides, and we want you to have easy access to that information. So we'll go ahead and make sure that all of that is accessible for people who want to not have to watch the whole thing over in order to get a phone number.
All right, so thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.